In every marriage, sooner or later there is a crisis that you just need to go through together and move on. But there are situations when you lose trust in your partner, and what should you do in this case? To seek the truth. I finally arrived at my house at 3 in the morning on Saturday. The drive from Aberdeen to London had been dreadful, with the usual Friday traffic and a massive pile-up on the motorway that delayed me for hours. I expected my wife, Victoria, to be asleep by then, but I was surprised to find that she hadn't left a light on for me. Struggling to haul my bags and briefcase out of the car's boot, I barely managed to carry everything at once as I made my way to the front door. The moment I stepped inside, I could tell something was off. The house was cold. Clearly, the heating had been turned down or off. That was strange since Vicky can't stand the cold. She always keeps the heating cranked up higher than I'd like. After setting my bags down, I switched on a few lights, only to be stunned by the sight of missing furniture. My mind racing with confusion, I hurried upstairs to our bedroom, expecting to find Vicky asleep. But the bed was empty. The wardrobe doors were wide open, dresser drawers pulled out, and almost all of Vicky's clothes were gone. I stood there frozen in disbelief. What the hell was going on? Thinking a drink might help clear my head, I headed back to the lounge. I grabbed a bottle of rum from the bar and sank into my recliner, trying to process the situation. It was painfully obvious. Vicky had left me. But why? We had been married for nearly 19 years. We shared 2 amazing 18-year-old twin daughters, both in their first year at Bristol University. And yes, in case you're trying to work out the timeline, Vicky was 5 months pregnant when we tied the knot. To be honest, when we got married, it wasn't exactly a fairy tale romance. We were just dating, having fun, and then we made a big mistake. Vicky got pregnant with Susan and Sandra. I did what any decent man would do. I married her. I didn't have much of a choice. My dad would have killed me if I hadn't. But love has a way of sneaking up on you. It didn't take long for me to fall head over heels for Vicky and the girls. My life quickly revolved around them. Whatever Vicky wanted, I'd do whatever it took to get it for her. Say what you want, but I was as devoted to her as any man could be to his wife. And with the girls now off at university, Vicky and I had finally started making up for all the lost time from when they were young. Not everything had been perfect, though. Victoria was a strong-willed woman, and to be honest, I usually gave in to her wishes just to keep the peace. For the most part, I was content with my marriage, but now it felt like I had been living a lie, or at least she had. It seemed clear that Vicky had left me, but I couldn't figure out why. She always told me how much she loved me. We had discussed the fact that neither of us would have likely gotten married if she hadn't gotten pregnant. But we both agreed that it had probably been the best thing to happen to us, and over time we had fallen deeply in love. Now it seemed like maybe she had started to second-guess everything. Anger suddenly welled up inside me. I jumped to my feet and began pacing the room before storming out into the backyard to light my pipe. Vicky hated the smell of pipe tobacco in the house, so I always smoked outside. I stood out there for 10 minutes before it hit me. Vicky wasn't there to complain anymore, and it seemed she wouldn't be around to do so in the future. Yet for some reason I stayed outside and finished my pipe. As I walked back in through the kitchen door, I noticed a letter lying on the table. For a moment I just stared at it. The envelope was addressed to David, definitely from Vicky. I knew she'd been upset when she wrote it, because the only time she ever called me David was when she was mad at me. I sat down at the table, took the envelope and turned it over in my hands. To be honest, I didn't really want to open it. Deep down, I knew I wouldn't like what was inside. After a moment's hesitation, I carefully opened the envelope and unfolded the letter. You bastard. You're a selfish, lying, cheating jerk. I'm leaving you. I thought you loved me, but now I know you don't. You were secretly dating another girl, and I have proof. I'm meeting with a lawyer on Monday. I'm going to divorce you and take everything I can. You're going to regret crossing my path. Did you ever think about children when you were having fun with her? I will make sure that you lose everything. Maybe you should start looking for another place to live, because you won't be able to keep a house once I break up with you. Victoria. Well, that's interesting, I muttered to myself. I wonder who this girl that Vicky thinks I'm dating is. It looks like there's been a serious communication glitch somewhere. Look, do I seem like the kind of guy who cheats on his wife? A guy like that would have walked away from Vicky the moment she got pregnant. I'm the type who values what he has and has no intention of losing it. Sure, there have been moments of temptation. What guy hasn't had them? But I've always known which side my bread is buttered on, and I've been very careful about my actions. Still, it was clear that Vicky believed I was messing around. So, what did I do? Well, there was really only one option. Go to bed. I'd been awake since before 6 on Friday morning, and by now it was 4:30 on Saturday. So, off to bed I went. Just like that, calm and composed. You see, I've made it this far in business by not letting emotions take over. Once I understood the issue, I could relax a bit, knowing it wouldn't take much to reassure Vicky. All I needed to do was show her she had it all wrong and, bam, crisis averted. But when I got into bed, I realized I couldn't sleep. Unexpected questions started running through my mind. If Vicky thought I was cheating on her, why didn't she confront me about it? That was a solid question. Could it be because she had expected me to cheat all along? But why would she think that? One thing I'd learned over the years is that people often assume others will act the way they do. Wait a minute. Could Vicky suspect me of cheating because she had been unfaithful herself? And maybe, for some reason, her own guilt made her suspicious of me. As soon as that thought hit me, I shot out of bed. This was serious. Before I even knew what I was doing, I was tearing through the house, searching for anything that might prove Vicky had been cheating on me. I turned her sewing room upside down, though there wasn't much to find. Searching the drawers in her bedroom wasn't worth it. They were all empty. Then I moved on to the computer. It took me hours. I managed to crack her email passwords pretty fast, and I spent even more time digging through the internet history. It was a complete waste of time, but I had to be sure. I found nothing suspicious, except one thing. Vicky had searched for a divorce lawyer on Thursday. However, there was no sign that she had contacted the lawyer she seemed to have chosen. That gave me an idea. If you want to win a fight, you go on the offensive. It was a long shot, but worth trying. Just after 9 a.m., I emailed the firm Vicky had likely picked, asking them to represent me in a divorce. I figured there was a chance she hadn't reached out to them yet. I got lucky. Within minutes of sending my email, they responded, asking me to come to their office as soon as possible. So that's exactly what I did. Shortly after 10 a.m. on Saturday morning, I gave Maria Grant a check, officially making her my solicitor. It seemed Vicky didn't realize that some solicitors work on Saturdays. After I explained what I had discovered at home and showed her the letter, Maria asked if I had ever been unfaithful in my marriage. I assured her that I loved my wife and hadn't done anything since we got married that could jeopardize our relationship. Maria advised me to stay calm, try to figure out where Vicky had gone, and have a conversation with her. She believed it was likely just a misunderstanding that could be resolved with some open communication between us. I returned home and began looking for Vicky. I reached out to her parents and brother, but they both said they hadn't heard from her and that she wasn't with them. It was clear she hadn't told them anything either. The same response came from her sister, though I had assumed Vicky wouldn't have gone to her since she lived too far away. Even though Vicky hadn't informed them about leaving me, Her family immediately took her side and shut me out once I told them the reason behind her departure. The next call I had to make was one I wasn't looking forward to, but I knew it was my best option. I needed to reach out to Vicky's friend, Chantel. Chan had been divorced twice, and to be honest, I couldn't blame the guys. One minute she could be as sweet as a peach, and the next, she'd turn into a total nightmare. She and Vicky had been friends since their school days. Whenever Chantel wasn't off with one of her many admirers, she was a real heartbreaker. She would usually be hanging out with Vicky. Every couple of weeks, Vicky and Chan would have a girls' night out. It wasn't uncommon for Vicky to call me afterward and ask for a ride, usually because Chan had found herself a date. Vicky and I would laugh about it. It had always felt like I could trust her. Whenever Chantel hooked up with someone, Vicky would rely on me to pick her up. I dialed Chantel's number, and from the moment she answered, I knew I had struck gold. She started giving me an earful as soon as she recognized my voice. I calmly insisted on speaking to Victoria, but Chan denied she was there. I was convinced she was lying. This was the only place Vicky could have gone, and Chantel's attitude made it obvious she knew about Vicky leaving me. After 5 minutes of back and forth, I gave up and hung up. The familiar emotions stirred again, so I stepped outside for another smoke. While out there, I pulled myself together and started thinking clearly. Vicky was playing games. Her storming off without saying a word was meant to provoke me. But I wasn't going to let it get to me anymore. I had nothing to feel guilty about. All right, Vicky, if games were what you wanted, then I'd play along. I marched back into the house and called the twins. They were stunned when I told them their mother had walked out on me. Naturally, I explained that I had done nothing to make her leave, and I'm pretty sure I managed to convince them. I mentioned I suspected Vicky was staying with Chantel, and added that, as far as I was concerned, she could stay there. The girls insisted it was all just a silly misunderstanding, and that their mother would come to her senses soon enough. I knew I probably shouldn't have dragged the girls into this. But since it was all just a game, I figured they'd give their mother a good scolding for it. After that, I headed out to the garage to start searching. When we bought the house, I replaced the barrels in the locks on the exterior doors for 2 main reasons. First, we weren't sure if we had received all the keys, and second, I wanted a matching set of barrels so that all the exterior doors could be opened with the same key. It's much more convenient than carrying around a bunch of keys. Installing a Eurolock barrel only takes a few minutes. Now I've switched all the barrels back to the originals, disabled the garage door opener, and bolted the shutter down. Vicky wanted out. Well, now she was well and truly out, and she wasn't getting back in. While I was busy securing the garage shutter, my neighbor from across the street, Old Man Blake, came over. He and his wife are a couple of nosy busybodies, so I figured they'd seen Vicky moving out and came over to fish for some gossip. He didn't get much out of me, but I did find out that a Ryder rental truck had shown up Friday morning. 2 men and a woman helped Vicky move a lot of things out of the house. The 2 men drove off in the truck with Vicky following in her Saab. The other woman left in a pink VW Beetle. I knew it. It had to be Chantel. That annoying little pink Beetle was hers, no doubt about it. That night, I closed all the curtains downstairs and pulled the blinds shut on the garage windows. From the outside, no one could see in, but I still had a clear view from the upstairs windows. I could also keep an eye on the front door and the driveway through the security cameras. I had installed the system a few years ago so that Vicky could see who was at the door when I wasn't home. Then I gave Chantel another call. I told you, David. Victoria isn't here. I have no idea where she is, and even if I did, I wouldn't tell you, you cheating bastard. That's perfectly fine, Chan. I get it. Just do me a favor. If you happen to run into Vicky, pass along a message. Tell her that since she decided to believe some dumb rumor without even bothering to talk to me, I really don't care where she's gone. In fact, I don't think I want to see her again. And if you do hear from her, could you ask her where I should have my lawyer send the divorce papers? I'll be filing for divorce on the grounds of desertion. We'll see how she likes that. You can't do that. She's going to divorce you for adultery. Well, Chantel, for her to do that, I would actually have to commit adultery with someone, which I know for a fact I haven't. So, I'd say I'm safe on that front. Don't worry your little head about it. The divorce will go my way because Vicky chose to abandon me. I've got a ridiculous letter from her saying just that. And according to my lawyer, that's all the proof I'll need. But someone saw you. I ended the call and unplugged the phone. That little slip from Chantel was all I needed to confirm my suspicion. She initially said I, but quickly corrected herself to you were seen, giving away more than she intended. From that half-sentence, I realized it was Chantel who believed she had spotted me with another woman somewhere. Now the question was, would Shan repeat everything I said to Vicky? And if so, would that make Vicky doubt her assumptions? I headed to the kitchen to fix myself something to eat. Once it was completely dark outside, I slipped out through the back door, circling the house to ensure no one could peek inside. If Vicky wanted to play games, I was ready to play along. Then I settled down at the computer to keep myself entertained, waiting for the fun I expected to unfold. At 8:30, I saw Vicky's Saab pull into the driveway on the CCTV feed. It seemed she had changed her plans. She stayed in the car, watching the house for a while. Soon after, Chantel showed up and joined her in the car. She must have parked her own vehicle on the street just out of sight. Vicky was clearly covering her bases. I wondered if she was starting to feel unsure, maybe thinking she didn't have enough proof if this turned into a legal fight, or that she might have misunderstood things. Either way, it seemed like she was hoping to stay. If she moved back into the house, I wouldn't be able to claim she'd abandoned me. After waiting for about 15 minutes, Vicky stepped out of the car and tried to unlock the front door. I figured she had probably been trying to open the garage door with the remote control but had finally given up. Naturally, her key didn't fit the lock. Vicky rang the doorbell a couple of times and even called out to me through the letterbox. Chantel then got out of the Saab and joined her. I could hear them talking, but aside from Chantel saying, "Try the other door," I couldn't make out much. They both moved out of the CCTV's range, and soon I heard them at the kitchen door, then at the patio doors, just 5 feet from where I was. Moments later, they were back at the front door. After another attempt at the front door, Vicky walked over to the garage and tried pulling up the shutter manually. When that failed, the two returned to the Saab, standing by it for a while, engaged in an animated conversation. Their exchange ended when Chantel walked off, and Vicky got back into her car. For the next half hour, Vicky sat there, seemingly making calls on her mobile phone over and over again. But she wasn't actually speaking to anyone. I could only assume she was trying to call the house phone, but the line was occupied because I had the computer connected to the internet, and my mobile phone was turned off. After a while, Chantel returned with a McDonald's bag. She joined Vicky in the Saab, and they stayed there until well past midnight, when they suddenly drove off. Peeking through the curtain, I noticed that they had left Chantel's VW parked on the street, so I figured they planned to come back the next morning. They spent the entire Sunday in the driveway, with Chantel making several trips to McDonald's, which wasn't far away. Again, they left just after midnight, but this time they took Chantel's car as well. I assumed she needed it to get to work the next morning. On Monday morning, I left the house extra early, just in case Vicky showed up again. I went to a motorway service area and grabbed a questionable breakfast. Then I sat there reading the daily papers until it was time to head to work. Oddly enough, I was the first one in that day. I figured this whole situation would wrap up today. Vicky was bound to call me at the office, and I'd finally get some payback for the scare she gave me on Friday night. Sure enough, at 9:05, my phone rang. "David, where the hell have you been?" Vicky snapped. "I've been trying to get into the house all weekend." That verbal attack unsettled me once again. Honestly, I had been expecting a very apologetic Victoria that morning. "I wouldn't try getting into the house again, Vicky. You don't live there anymore, remember? And since the house is way too big for just me, I've rented it out." It was a lie, of course, but it achieved the desired result. Vicky lost it. "Are you out of your mind? You can't have rented it out. Why on earth would you do that?" "Listen, Vicky, we've got an expensive court battle coming up. The rent will help cover the costs." "You've gone completely mad." "No, Vicky. You lost it the moment you started all this. You accused me of cheating, wrote me that ridiculous letter full of insults, and then refused to talk to me while hiding out at Chantel's. David, we need to talk." "It's too late for talking now, Vicky. That time was Friday night. Now it's the lawyer's turn to cash in." "So that's it? You're not even sorry for what you've done? You're just relieved to be rid of me after 20 years? Wow. Slow down, girl. First of all, I've got nothing to apologize for. You were the one who walked out. You left that stupid note that nearly gave me a heart attack. And you're the one who brought up divorce. So here's what I suggest. Go see that lawyer you were so quick to threaten me with and find out what he says. Then call me back with his details so I can pass them on to mine. Goodbye, Victoria." I hung up the phone. Was I going too far? Yeah, I suppose I was. But as far as I'm concerned, there's only one thing worse than finding out your spouse has been fooling around behind your back. And that's realizing the person you love doesn't trust you the way they should. I made a couple of calls I thought were necessary. The first was to Ryder's truck rental. There were a few things I needed to confirm with them. They gave me a contact number, and I had a long conversation with a very apologetic little man. I'd met him once at one of Chantel's parties. Pretty sure I scared the hell out of him. After that, I made an international call to take care of another angle. About half an hour later, I got a call from Maria Grant. She sounded a little annoyed with me. "Mr. Polson, we've just had a visit from your wife, and I strongly suspect you knew she was planning to retain me to represent her today." "Well, yeah, I had a hunch that's what she intended, but since you're the best divorce lawyer in town, I thought it'd be smarter if you were on my side instead. My assistant referred her to another firm. I'll warn you, they're very good and very expensive." "Maria, no offense, but can you name a lawyer who isn't expensive?" "None taken, David. It's your money. You can say whatever you like. But why aren't you two just talking this out and fixing the situation?" The answer lies in the way she addresses me. Victoria is calling me David, which means she's mad at me. If I told her I didn't have an affair, she wouldn't believe me. If she did believe me, she'd call me Dave. It's that simple. She's never called me David before. I'm not sure I follow your logic, but I really think you two need to sit down and talk. I'll be ready when Victoria's ready to listen. But when that time comes, I've got some important questions for her. If I don't get the answers I need, you'll still be handling our divorce. David, do you have any reason to believe your wife has been unfaithful to you or something? Not really, but she was awfully quick to assume that I might be. I've always believed that people tend to expect others to act the way they would themselves. It got me wondering, has Victoria been as faithful to me as she expects me to be to her? She's been awfully fast to accuse me. I see your point now, though it's not a perspective I've heard before. Well, we'll see how things unfold, won't we? I'll give you a call later, Maria. The rest of the morning was largely unproductive. I barely got anything done, and it wasn't until close to noon that Vicky finally called me back. Dave, we need to talk. Immediately I dropped the defensive stance and agreed to meet her at 2 o'clock in the pub near my office. When I gave in so quickly, she seemed surprised, as if she thought I had surrendered too easily. But the moment she switched back to calling me David, I knew this was far from over. I was sitting in a quiet corner of the bar when Vicky walked in. She headed straight for me and sat down across the table, though I'd left enough space for her to sit beside me if she wanted. "Aren't you going to buy me a drink?" she asked. "Number, you can buy your own damn drink. Remember, you walked out on me. You don't need me, right?" Vicky looked stunned, as if she had expected me to be the one scrambling to defend myself. She stood up, went to the bar, and bought herself a drink. When she came back, she demanded, "Well, what do you have to say for yourself?" "Victoria, I haven't the faintest idea what's gotten into you. I honestly don't know what you think I should apologize for. You were in Blackpool last weekend with some little tart. You were seen, so don't even try to deny it. Victoria, I was in Edinburgh last weekend. You know that? I called you several times." "I don't know that at all. You called me on your mobile. For all I knew, you could have been in bloody Timbuktu. And I've been told you were spotted in Blackpool with another woman." "Victoria, I was working. You know my routine. It's the same 4 times a year. Glasgow, Edinburgh, Aberdeen, 3 days in each city. I've been following that same schedule for nearly 5 years. But you were seen in Blackpool." "Okay, Victoria, who supposedly saw me in Blackpool? Whoever told you that must be either mistaken or lying. Honestly, why would anyone go to Blackpool at this time of year? It's freezing up there on the coast." "To see the lights. Chantel went on a coach trip last weekend to check out the Blackpool illuminations and do some Christmas shopping. She said she saw you with some little tart. Apparently you were so wrapped up in her that you walked past Chantel a couple of times without even noticing, and she followed both of you all the way to your room." "Chantel. I should have known. Vicky, how long have I known Chantel?" "Since you met me, I suppose. And you think I wouldn't notice if she was staying in the same hotel as me? How long was I supposed to be staying there with her?" "The weekend. She went for a weekend trip, Friday to Monday." "Come on, Victoria, use some logic. Chantel isn't exactly my favorite person, but she does have a presence. Do you honestly think any man wouldn't notice those ridiculously short skirts she wears? Or that set of Bristols that arrive 10 minutes before she does? I told you before, Chantel's hard to miss. Plenty of guys have learned that the hard way." Victoria looked slightly confused. I could tell the argument was almost over, and she was about to back down and apologize, when the door flew open and Chantel stormed into the bar. She marched straight to our booth and, to my surprise, slid into the seat next to me, pinning me in. With a smug grin, she pulled out a small folder, the kind you get for printed photos. "All right, you bastard, explain this," she snapped, shoving a print in my face. I gave the photo a quick glance, then smiled. Taking it from her hand, I turned it toward Victoria. "Oh, didn't you recognize Mei Ling, Victoria? Isn't that sweet of Chantel? Look, she's taken some lovely pictures of Mei Ling. I hope you got a few of my brother too, Chantel. You know, Chan, I had no idea they were even in the country. Did you, Vicky? Their ship must have docked in Liverpool, and Philip must have taken Mei Ling up to see the Blackpool lights as well. Normally, their ship docks in Amsterdam. My twin brother is married to Mei Ling, a charming Chinese woman he met in Singapore several years ago. They live aboard a container ship, where he serves as the first mate. Since the ship is rarely in port, many of the married crew members bring their spouses along. Oh, and by the way, my brother and I are identical twins, just like my daughters. Twins run in the family, which can be pretty convenient." At that moment, Vicky was in tears, and Chantel sat there with her mouth agape. I decided to carry on. "Did you say hello to Phil, Chantel? If I recall, you had a crush on him at our wedding. That was quite a while ago, though, wasn't it?" Suddenly, both of them were crying. Vicky because she realized she'd made a huge mistake, and Chantel, I assumed, because she felt guilty for throwing Vicky under the bus. I sat back, taking a sip of my beer, waiting for them to compose themselves. After a while, their sobs quieted, but it was clear they were at a loss for words. Chantel finally mustered the courage to speak. "Dave, I'm so sorry. I completely forgot about Phil. I genuinely thought it was you. You two are just so alike," she said at last. "Well, of course we're alike. We are identical twins," I replied. "And don't worry about forgetting Phil, Chan. I doubt he'd remember someone like you." That might have been a bit harsh, but I was still seething. "I'm really sorry, Dave," Vicky piped up, seemingly finding her voice again. "It never crossed my mind to think about Philip. Can you forgive me for being so foolish? Please, you must understand how it looked." "No, I bloody well can't," I snapped, watching as both of them recoiled in shock. "I have just one question for you, Vicky. Why? Why would you even think I'd cheat on you? We've been married for 19 years. In all that time, have I ever given you any reason to doubt me?" "No, Dave," Vicky admitted. "You've been an amazing husband and a fantastic father to our girls." "Then what made you so damn certain that I was sneaking around behind your back? And before you answer that, think carefully. Don't tell me it was because of something Chantel said. If that's the case, it would mean you trusted her more than me. Your husband, the one who's clothed you, fed you, and taken care of you for the past 19 years. The same man who rushed to your side when this so-called friend of yours found herself a fling on your girls' nights out. Something I've never complained about." Vicky sat there staring at me. It was clear she'd taken my warning to heart and was choosing her words carefully before responding. I gave her a moment, then continued. "Why were you so quick to believe I'd cheat on you? Could it be that you've been hiding things from me in the past? You know, people often assume others will act the way they do. Honestly, the idea never even crossed my mind before. Maybe I'm naive or just stupid, but it never occurred to me that you would cheat on me while you were out with that woman. I never imagined cheating on you, so I naturally believed you'd never do it to me either. But you've changed the rules, Vicky. Now I see how foolish I've been. You didn't even hesitate to think I was cheating. No questions, no confrontation. Your friend tells you I was unfaithful, and you took it as the truth, no doubts at all. All right then. Prove to me that you've never cheated on me. What about all those nights you came home at 2 or 3 in the morning, or the times you stayed over at Chan's place? And what were you up to while I was away?" "Oh God, Dave, I swear I've never cheated on you," Victoria finally burst out. "That's what you say. But if that's true, then who were those 2 clowns driving the Ryder truck on Friday? And why did you kiss that little jerk?" I watched as Vicky visibly flinched at the mention of the kiss. "They're just a couple of guys from Chantel's office," she explained quickly. "She asked them to help me." "Oh, yeah? And how exactly did you thank them when they brought your stuff back to Chantel's place? The same way Chantel usually pays for her favors." Vicky knew exactly what I was getting at. Chan had told us more than once how she got her car serviced for free. I'd warned her plenty of times that the mechanic's wife wasn't one to mess with. I'd seen her in action once. Entertaining, sure, but pretty degrading too. Let's be real, though. Most guys enjoy watching a good catfight. Never saw the girl who got caught with her husband after that. "No way, I'd never do that. I just gave Mike a little kiss on the cheek to say thanks, that's it. It was nothing, just a quick peck." "Yeah, but that was in front of everyone. What about when you were back at Chantel's? What did he get in private?" "Nothing, Dave, I swear. They just unloaded the van and left. They had to return it." "Really? Then explain why you were hit with extra charges. That van wasn't returned until 10 on Saturday morning. When you book a van online, they send all the paperwork by email. I've seen that email. The van wasn't back until 10 sharp on Saturday. So what really went down? I need to get out of here before I lose it. Move, Chantel, or I'll move you myself." Chantel stood, and I brushed past her, then turned to Vicky one last time. I'm not taking anything but the full truth from you. I've got plenty of friends who hang out at those same clubs you and Chantel like to visit. You'd better think long and hard about whether you want to try and save this marriage. Right now, I honestly don't care either way. But if anyone comes to me with stories about what you've been doing all this time, you'd better make sure I hear it from you first. Be at the house by 8 tonight. I'll give you 1 hour to explain everything. And with that, I walked out of the bar. Look, I'm not naive, and I don't think Victoria is either. Even though I never explicitly asked, my friends had always kept a close watch on Vicky and Chantel during their nights out. Well, to be fair, they mainly kept an eye on Chantel. It's no secret that she has a bit of a reputation. But I'd recently heard that Victoria had earned herself a nickname at the clubs. People were calling her the Ice Maiden. She was known for being a lot of fun on the dance floor, but that's where it ended. Victoria's problem now was that she didn't know exactly who all my friends were, or what kind of spin they might put on things when they talked to me. If she had done something out of line, she'd have to tell me herself tonight. Since I had taken a late lunch, I figured there was no point in heading back to the office, so I decided to go home. When I left earlier that morning, I had reconnected the phone, and the first thing I saw when I walked in was the answer phone's message light flashing. There were a couple of messages from Vicky, clearly from earlier in the day before she called me at work. They were the usual type, demanding to know where I was and why she couldn't get into the house. Then there was a message from Ricky Morris. Ricky and I went to school together. We weren't exactly close friends back then, but let's just say that behind the scenes, I helped him score well on his homework. Ricky liked to act tough around his friends, but deep down, he wanted to do well in school. I sort of became his unofficial tutor. Hey Dave, I've been trying to reach you all weekend. What's going on, mate? Victoria and Chantel were at the club Friday night, and Chantel was going around telling people that you two had split up. Give me a call, yeah? I need to know how you want to handle this. I called Ricky back, but before I could even get a word in, he said he was on his way over and hung up. Less than 10 minutes later, his car was pulling into my driveway. As I mentioned, Ricky is a tough guy who, in his younger years, had his fair share of run-ins with the police. However, he turned his life around after joining a decent gym, where he got into amateur boxing. That eventually led him to a job as a bouncer at one of the bigger nightclubs in town, and over time, he worked his way up to become the manager. Rumor has it that he even co-owns a couple of local night spots, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it were true. Anyway, like I said, Ricky has always had a soft spot for me and looked out for my interests, especially when it came to Vicky. He would often call me at work or drop by the pub where I had lunch to discreetly give me the scoop on who Vicky had been dancing with or if anyone had tried to hit on her. I'm fairly certain that if anyone had ever convinced her to step outside, Ricky or one of his bouncers would have stepped in. It was also Ricky who told me that Victoria had earned herself the nickname the Ice Maiden. Ricky refused my offer of a beer since he had to work later, so we settled for some coffee instead. Okay, Dave, what the hell is going on between you and Vicky? She was at the club on Friday, and Chantel was telling everyone that you broke up. She said that last weekend you were hanging out with some Asian girl in Blackpool or something. Let me guess. Chantel was in Blackpool last week, and Philip was there with his missus. She mistook him for me and ran her mouth off to Victoria. I came back from Aberdeen to find that Vicky had packed her things and left me without so much as a word. Ah, shit. But you sorted it out, right? Not exactly, Rick. Let's just say we're playing a bit of a mind game for now. I was really pissed off that Vicky didn't talk to me about it first. It made me wonder if she's been messing around behind my back. Come on, no way, mate. I'd stake my life on it. No one's getting into Vicky's pants. When some of the guys heard you two were on the rocks, they thought they might have a chance on Friday night. But from what I hear, the ice was colder than ever. Vicky and Chantel left long before closing, and the taxi took them straight to Chantel's place. I had a word with the driver. Thought you'd want to know. Thanks, Ricky. It's good to have friends like you. All part of the service, Dave. It's about time you dropped by the club anyway. You never come around to see the boys anymore. After that, the conversation shifted to the usual banter, what old friends were up to, and things like that. Before we knew it, it was nearly 8 o'clock, and Ricky said he'd better head to the club. Just as he was leaving, Victoria pulled into the driveway. I caught Victoria doing a double take when Ricky backed out of the driveway. A look of confusion crossed her face. She obviously recognized him but had no idea that I knew him. I stood in the doorway as she climbed the steps toward me. "Wasn't that Morris, the manager from Starlight?" she asked. "What was he doing here?" "You mean Ricky Morris?" "Yeah, he's an old friend. He dropped by to offer his sympathy about our upcoming divorce. Come on in, have a seat in the kitchen. I've got coffee brewing." I followed Vicky into the kitchen and managed to reach the coffee pot first. This was my house now, and I was going to pour the damn coffee. "Dave, this is ridiculous. I know you're upset, but you're being childish about it. Chantel was certain it was you she saw. How was she supposed to know Philip and Mei Ling were even in the country? What else could I have thought in my position? I would have thought Chantel made a mistake, at least until I checked the facts myself. But you didn't do that, did you? You just walked out. Dave, I know I was wrong, okay? I admit that. But why did you lock me out of the house? Because you made it clear it wasn't your house anymore when you left. The moment you walked out that door on Friday, you ended our marriage. Don't be ridiculous, Dave. I was angry. I just wanted to teach you a lesson. I know it was stupid. I'm sorry, and I want to come back. Well, you made your bed, Vicky. Now you'd better get used to lying in it. Are you saying you won't let me move back in? That's exactly what I'm saying. But why? Because I don't believe you, or trust you for that matter. Tell me, when exactly did Chantel say she saw Philip in Blackpool? Tuesday, when she got back. Why? Was that before or after we talked on the phone that night? After. So when I called you on Wednesday, you already knew that Chan thought she had seen me, or rather Philip. Yes. Then why didn't you confront me on Wednesday evening? Better yet, why didn't you call me back on Tuesday after Chan told you? Why act like nothing was wrong? I don't know. I wasn't sure what I was going to do at that point. But you figured it out, didn't you? You decided life would be easier without me. You thought you'd get everything, our savings, a nice share of my pension. I didn't matter. It was just the money you cared about. Oh my God, no, Dave. How could you even think that? I only wanted to scare you, that's all. If it was just to scare me, why take all the furniture? You leaving would have been enough. There was no need to empty half the damn house. You're right, it was too much. But Chan said it would make you take me seriously. Chan again. It always comes back to her. Do you realize that most of our fights over the years have been because of the ideas Chan puts in your head? And here's something else. If Chan told you she saw me with an Asian girl, what would you have thought? I would have immediately thought of Philip. But Chan never mentioned the girl being Asian, did she? I guess not. Maybe she didn't notice. You have to admit, Mei Ling's features aren't that distinct. Then why was Chantel telling everyone at the club that I was living with a little Chinese girl? She must not have known. She said she didn't realize the girl was Chinese until you pointed it out in those photos at the pub, and she only got them back from the lab this morning. Don't ask me. Ask Ricky next time you see him, or any of your club friends. They'll tell you what Chan was saying. I think Chantel knew from the start that it was Mei Ling and Philip. I just can't figure out why she told you otherwise. But why would she lie? I don't know, Victoria. She's your friend. You tell me what she was trying to pull and why? She seemed so certain. It was even her idea for me to move out. Vicky sat quietly, staring into the distance. I got up and poured myself a drink. Can I have one too? She asked. I poured her a scotch and soda. Dave, can I ask you something? Anything. But will you be honest with me? I've always been honest with you. Well, except for a couple of times when I had to lie to plan surprises, like our 10th anniversary honeymoon. No, I'm serious. I need you to tell me the truth. Have you ever made a move on Chan since we got married? Now, who's trying to be funny? Of course not. Do I look stupid? God knows what you could catch from her. She's never been picky. And what about Fran Cooper, your old secretary? Fran? Are you out of your mind? You've met her husband? Do you think I've got a bloody death wish? So you've never made a move on Chan, and you've never had anything with Fran? Don't be ridiculous. Why are you even asking? You're absolutely sure you never kissed Fran? Well, of course I kissed her a few times. If I recall, I think her husband was going after your tonsils a couple of times under the mistletoe at those Christmas parties. I mean, besides the Christmas parties. Everyone kisses under the mistletoe. You're being ridiculous again. Only an idiot would mix business with pleasure. Besides, I was perfectly happy with the woman I had. God, I've been such a fool. I'm not going to comment on that, but it's cost you more than you'll ever know. Vicky gave me a look that should have sent me straight over to comfort her. My heart ached for her, but I was still clinging to the moral high ground, still playing the role of the wronged husband. Then she started crying. Damn it, I lost the battle. I'd barely managed to walk away from the pub earlier when she cried, and that had been a tactical error on her part. If she'd sat beside me, I would have given in right then. I moved over to sit next to her and wrapped my arm around her shoulders. After what felt like an eternity, she finally stopped crying. You've never done anything shameful in our marriage, have you? What do you think, babe? Then why? Why what, Vicky? Why would Chan say you did? Why would she tell me she saw you with Fran? You'd better ask her that one, Victoria. She's your friend. No, she's not. Not anymore. I don't know why, but every doubt I've had about you and our marriage traces back to Chan. What doubts? Oh, suspicions about you cheating when you're away or that you had something going on with Fran. Do what? Why didn't you ever mention this before? Because I love you. I didn't want to cause a confrontation. I thought if I let things go, you'd come back to me. I would never leave you, Vicky. I love you too much. I understand that now. I should have known it all along. I'm sorry, Dave. I haven't been the best wife. I didn't give you the trust you deserved. Can you forgive me? That's a big question, but I'm not sure it's mine to answer. I think you need to answer it yourself. Look inside and figure out why you thought I'd be unfaithful. Once you know that, you'll have your answer. Vicky reached into her bag and took out her phone. She dialed a number with purpose. Chantel, we're no longer friends. I never want to see or hear from you again. Shut up and listen, you witch. I'm calling because if I saw you in person, I don't know if I could control myself. I might hurt you. All these years, I listened to you, but now I see you've been trying to come between me and my husband. You've lied to me so many times. From now on, stay out of my life. Vicky looked up at me. Can I bring my bags in from the car now? No, we'll head straight to bed. I've missed you these past weeks, and you definitely won't need any night clothes tonight. We went upstairs and spent the night trying to relive our honeymoon. It was one of the best nights we've had. The next morning, I arranged to have our furniture picked up from the storage unit Victoria had rented. We settled back into our old routine. Sure, there were the solicitor's bills to pay, but at least Chan was out of our lives. It was worth every penny. It took Vicky a while to figure out what Chan's issue was. One day, she ran into an old friend who told her that, before we got married, Chan had a crush on me and wanted to steal me from Victoria. That never happened. I do recall Chan being a bit forward, but I always saw her as trouble, so I kept my distance. Now Vicky and I plan to grow old together, and we talk about our feelings a lot more. Oh, and I'm a regular at Ricky's club most weeks, but the Ice Queen dances more than I do. As for Chantel, I don't think either Victoria or I have seen her since. It was on the night of our next anniversary. I have just returned from one of my trips. As soon as I crossed the threshold, Vicky attacked me. She dragged me upstairs to the bedroom. Look, I've always said that I consider myself a gentleman, but I've never claimed that I'm perfect, the one who dares wins. And life goes on. You just need to be a little more careful.